I didn't hear it clearly at first. Pain has a way of muffling sound, of turning the world into fragments. I was lying on a narrow hospital bed, my body curled in on itself, hands shaking so badly I could barely keep them still. The pain in my stomach had gone from uncomfortable to unbearable in less than an hour. It felt sharp, twisting, like something inside me was tearing apart. Machines beeped steadily beside me. Nurses moved quickly, their voices calm but urgent. Someone mentioned blood work. Someone else said they needed to move fast. I remember staring at the ceiling lights, trying not to panic, trying to breathe through something that wouldn't let me breathe. They told me I needed surgery. That word landed heavy in my chest. As they prepared to wheel me down the hall, I asked the same question over and over, my voice barely steady enough to come out right. Did someone call my mom? They said yes. So in my head, I pictured her rushing through the hospital doors. Worried. Scared. Taking my hand and telling me everything would be okay. That's what mothers do, right? Then, just before they pulled the curtain back, I heard her voice. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't scared. It wasn't talking to me. Let's go back home. She'll be fine. I froze. She was standing just outside the curtain, talking to the rest of my family like she was deciding whether to leave a restaurant early. Calm. Certain. Almost bored. She'll be fine, she said again. We can't miss the party. The words didn't register all at once. They landed slowly, one by one, sinking deeper than the pain ever could. I waited for someone to argue. For another voice to say this wasn't right. For someone to choose me. No one did. Footsteps moved away. The curtain shifted. And suddenly, the hallway felt emptier than it had a second before. They rolled my bed forward. The ceiling lights passed overhead in a blur. A nurse leaned in and asked softly, "Is someone waiting for you?" I nodded. Yes, I said. I lied. Because admitting the truth, that my family had just walked away while I was being rushed into surgery, felt unbearable. That sentence didn't just hurt me. It changed how I saw my family forever. And lying there alone, staring at the ceiling, I made a quiet decision. What I did next didn't involve yelling. It didn't involve confrontation. But it made my entire family panic. And if you think you know what you'd do if the people who were supposed to choose you didn't, stay with me until the end. Before that day, I would have told anyone who asked that I had a good family. Not perfect. Not overly close. But normal. The kind of family that shows up for holidays, smiles in group photos, and says "love you" at the end of phone calls. We didn't fight much. We didn't have dramatic blow-ups. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. And for a long time, I believed that meant everything was fine. My name is Chloe. I'm 26 years old, and I'm a dancer. My life has always revolved around discipline, long rehearsals, sore muscles, early mornings, and learning how to push through discomfort without complaining. Pain, to me, was never something to panic over. It was something you managed quietly and moved past. My family loved that about me. "You're so strong," my mom would say. "You've always been independent," relatives would add. "You don't need much." They said it like praise, and I accepted it that way. I thought being low maintenance meant I was easy to love. I thought not asking for much made me mature, resilient, better. So when they missed things, I didn't argue. When my mom skipped a rehearsal because she was tired, I told myself it was understandable. When my family arrived late to my graduation and left early, I said it didn't matter. When I watched recordings of my own performances alone instead of seeing them live from the audience, I smiled and told everyone I was just happy they cared at all. I trained myself not to need them. Or at least, that's what I thought. Looking back, there were signs I ignored. Small disappointments stacked so neatly that I never noticed the pattern forming. I told myself love didn't have to look loud or obvious. Sometimes it looked like space. Sometimes it looked like trust. I thought family meant understanding. I thought it meant forgiving without keeping score. I thought it meant not making people uncomfortable by asking them to show up when it was inconvenient. Even on the morning my body started to betray me, that belief was still intact. When the pain first appeared, dull and annoying, I brushed it off. I had rehearsals later. I didn't want to overreact. I didn't want to bother anyone. because that's who I had learned to be. The strong one. The fine one. The one who would always handle it. I had no idea that within hours, I would be lying in a hospital bed, realizing that the version of family I believed in had never really existed at all. And once that illusion cracks, everything else starts to come apart with it. The pain didn't give me time to think. What started as a tight knot in my stomach turned sharp within minutes, then unbearable. It moved in waves that stole the air from my lungs and forced me to bend over, gripping the kitchen counter just to stay upright. I tried sitting down, then lying on the floor. Nothing helped. I told myself to breathe, to stretch it out, to wait. That's what I always did. But when sweat soaked through my shirt and my hands started shaking, fear finally cut through my stubbornness. This wasn't something I could manage on my own. I was alone in my apartment. No roommates. No one nearby. I remember staring at my phone on the floor beside me, already feeling guilty for what I was about to do. I called for an ambulance. The ride was a blur of sirens and ceiling lights. Every bump in the road sent a new wave of pain through my body. A paramedic asked questions I struggled to answer: my name, my age, whether I had any medical history. When I shook my head at the last one, he exchanged a look with his partner that made my chest tighten. By the time we reached the emergency room, everything moved fast. They wheeled me past bright lights and curtained bays. Someone started in 4. Someone else drew blood. Cold fluid rushed into my veins, but the pain barely faded. I cried out once, hating the sound of my own voice, hating how helpless I felt. I asked the same question again. Did someone call my mom? Yes, a nurse said gently. She's been notified. Relief washed over me. Thin, but real. They ran tests quickly. An ultrasound. More blood work. A doctor pulled the curtain aside and looked at me with a calm expression that didn't match how my body felt. We need to take you into surgery, she said. Soon. The word hit hard. Surgery. I tried to ask questions, but my thoughts were scattered. All I could focus on was the idea of being put under, of losing control while something went wrong inside me. Fear settled deep in my chest. As they prepped me to be moved, a nurse placed my phone on the tray beside the bed and squeezed my shoulder. You're doing great, she said softly. Everything's happening fast, because it needs to. They rolled me into the hallway toward the operating rooms. The ceiling lights passed overhead one by one, blurring together. I scanned every face I passed, half expecting to see my family rushing toward me. Any second now, I thought. I didn't know yet that I was already alone. And that the worst part wasn't the pain or the surgery, it was what I was about to hear just outside a thin hospital curtain. I heard her voice before I understood what she was saying. At first, it was just familiar, my mom's tone cutting through the hum of the hospital. I turned my head slightly, straining to listen as they paused my bed near the nurse's station. My body was still shaking from the pain, but my mind snapped into focus. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to the rest of my family, gathered just outside the curtain. Let's go back home. She'll be fine. The words landed slowly, like they didn't belong to the moment I was in. I was being rushed toward surgery. Doctors had just told me waiting wasn't an option. Machines were beeping. Nurses were moving fast. And my family was discussing leaving. I waited for someone else to speak up. For another voice to say, no, this isn't right. For someone to argue that maybe staying mattered more than whatever they had planned. No one did. My mom spoke again, calm and certain. They said it's routine. Hospitals always make things sound worse than they are. We can't miss the party. The party. That word didn't make sense at first. It felt unreal, like it belonged to a different day, a different life. But the more I listened, the clearer it became. They weren't confused. They weren't panicking. They had decided. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my chest tight, my throat burning. I wanted to pull the curtain back. I wanted to say, I can hear you. I wanted to ask how a birthday cake and music could matter more than staying with me in case something went wrong. But the pain crushed the strength out of me. Footsteps shifted. Someone laughed softly, like the decision had already been settled. The curtain rustled as they moved away, their voices fading down the hallway. A nurse pushed my bed forward. Just like that, it was over. The hallway felt colder as we moved toward the operating room. The ceiling lights passed overhead one by one, too bright to look at for long. My heart was pounding, not just from fear of surgery, but from something deeper and sharper. Abandonment. Right before they put the mask over my face, a nurse leaned close and asked quietly, "Is someone waiting for you?" I didn't even think. "Yes," I said. The lie slipped out easily. Automatically. Because saying no out loud, admitting that my family had chosen to leave, felt worse than the surgery itself. I didn't want strangers to look at me with pity. I didn't want to explain. As the anesthesia took hold and the room began to blur, one thought echoed through my mind. If they could walk away this easily, what else had I been wrong about? And when I finally closed my eyes, I had no idea that waking up would hurt even more than this moment ever did. The first thing I noticed when I woke up was how quiet everything felt. Not peaceful. Empty. My eyes opened slowly, heavy and unfocused. The room was washed in pale light, the kind that makes everything feel unreal. My throat burned, dry and sore, and my stomach throbbed with a deep, controlled pain that felt different from before, stitched, contained, but still angry. For a few seconds, I didn't know where I was. Then it all rushed back. The ambulance. The hallway lights. My mom's voice saying it was fine to leave. My heart started racing. A nurse noticed my eyes flutter open and stepped closer, her voice gentle. "Hey, Chloe. You're out of surgery." Everything went well. Out of surgery. Relief hit me first. I was alive. I had made it through. Then hope followed, thin but stubborn. "Is my family here?" I asked. The nurse hesitated. Just for a moment. Long enough for me to notice. "Not yet," she said softly. "But you're okay. I'm right here." That pause said everything. She adjusted my fore and asked if I needed water. As she stepped away, I turned my head slowly and scanned the room. No familiar faces. No jacket thrown over a chair. No one sitting nearby pretending not to worry. Just me. My phone sat on the tray beside the bed, face down. I stared at it for a long time before picking it up, my hands shaking more than they had before surgery. Part of me braced for nothing. No messages. No missed calls. The final confirmation that I hadn't mattered enough to stay. Instead, the screen lit up instantly. Notifications flooded in. Missed calls. Group chats. Messages stacked on top of each other. For a brief, foolish moment, my heart lifted. Maybe they were downstairs. Maybe they just hadn't been allowed back yet. I opened the first message. It wasn't from my mom. It was a photo. A birthday cake. Candles lit. Balloons everywhere. Smiling faces crowded into the frame. My mom stood in the middle, laughing. Underneath it, a caption read, "Family time is the best time." My chest went cold. I scrolled. A video of everyone singing. Another picture. Jokes about how late it was getting. In the background of one clip, I could hear my mom's voice clearly, cutting through the music. "She'll be fine. They always exaggerate in hospitals." I lowered the phone onto my chest and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't confusion. It was a choice. And lying there alone, still sore from surgery, I realized something I couldn't unsee. They hadn't just left the hospital. They had left me. The hours that followed blurred together in a strange, quiet way. Nurses came and went, checking my vitals, adjusting my medication, asking how my pain felt on a scale from 1 to 10. Every single one of them waited for my answer. Every single one of them looked at my face, not just my chart. One nurse noticed I was shivering and brought me an extra blanket without me asking. Another brought water with a straw because she remembered my throat was sore. Small things. Ordinary things. But they mattered. At some point, one of them asked, "Do you want me to call someone for you?" I shook my head before I could overthink it. It wasn't that I didn't need anyone. It was that I didn't want to call people who had already decided I wasn't worth staying for. My phone kept lighting up. Not with apologies, not with concern, but with questions. "Is it true you had surgery alone? People are saying your family didn't stay. Are you okay?" The story was spreading, leaking out of group chats and whispered conversations. Someone had talked. Someone had noticed. One message stopped me completely. It was from a childhood friend who had been at the party. I'm so sorry, Chloe. I honestly thought you knew they decided to stay. I thought you were okay with it. They decided. The words echoed in my head. This wasn't something that just happened. It wasn't bad timing or miscommunication. It was a conversation I wasn't part of about my own emergency. A nurse from earlier came back in and smiled gently when she saw I was awake. "Any visitors yet?" she asked. I shook my head. She didn't look surprised. Instead, she pulled the curtain a little wider to let in more light and said quietly, "You know, you're allowed to set boundaries. Especially after something like this." Boundaries. I had always thought boundaries were harsh, unkind, something that would make me seem difficult or ungrateful. But lying there, stitched up and alone, I realized how wrong I had been. Boundaries weren't walls meant to shut people out. They were lines meant to protect you from being hurt the same way again. As the day wore on and strangers continued to show me more care than my own family had, something inside me shifted. I stopped waiting for them to show up. And for the first time, I started thinking about what it would look like if I stopped showing up for them, too. Once that thought settled in, it refused to leave. Lying there in the hospital bed, with strangers checking on me and my family nowhere in sight, memories started lining up in my head in a way they never had before. Not as isolated moments. Not as small disappointments I could brush off. As a pattern. I remembered my first big performance after landing a lead role. The one I had rehearsed for weeks, pushing myself until my feet were raw and my muscles burned. My mom had promised she'd be there. She texted an hour before curtains saying she was exhausted and would come next time. There was never a next time. I thought about my graduation. Standing on stage, scanning the crowd for familiar faces, feeling my chest tighten as I realized they weren't there yet. They arrived late, smiling like it wasn't a big deal, and left early because they were tired. I told myself it was fine. I remembered being sick as a teenager, curled up in bed, listening to complaints about traffic and parking instead of hearing, "How are you feeling?" I remembered how often concern was expressed in words, but rarely in action. Each memory used to feel manageable on its own. Easy to forgive. Easy to explain away. Together, they told a story I didn't want to accept. I wasn't forgotten. I was deprioritized. Being strong had slowly turned into an excuse. An excuse not to show up. An excuse not to worry. An excuse to assume I would handle whatever was thrown at me without needing support. And the worst part was realizing how much I had helped them believe that. I had smiled through disappointment. I had lowered my expectations. I had trained myself not to ask for more because I didn't want to seem needy or dramatic. I had confused being low maintenance with being loved. My phone buzzed again. A message from my mom. "We didn't think it was that serious. You know we love you." I stared at the screen for a long time. Love isn't something you say after the fact. It's something you do when it matters. For the first time, I stopped asking myself why they did this. I asked a harder question instead. Why did I keep accepting it? That question hurt. But it also did something else. It cleared the fog. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you can't unsee it. And once you understand that you've been shrinking yourself to make other people comfortable, you're faced with a choice. Keep shrinking. Or finally stop. And lying there, listening to the steady beeping of machines that had done more to keep me alive than my family had that night, I knew which one I was choosing. My phone felt heavier than it should have. I picked it up, then set it down again. Picked it up again. The movement pulled slightly at my stitches, a sharp reminder that my body was still healing, even if my mind was racing ahead. The photo was already there. I had taken it sometime during the night, when the hospital was quiet and the loneliness felt louder than the machines. My face looked pale and exhausted. The hospital bracelet was clear around my wrist. The 4-line was taped to the back of my hand. No filters. No angles. No attempt to look okay. Just proof. I stared at it for a long time. Posting it would break the rule I had lived by my entire life. Don't make things uncomfortable. Don't embarrass the family. Don't talk about private pain in public. That rule had kept things calm. It had also kept me invisible. My thumb hovered over the screen as a familiar voice crept into my head, telling me I was being dramatic. That this would cause unnecessary drama. that it would make people uncomfortable and lead to questions I didn't want to answer. But another thought followed, quieter and steadier. They were comfortable leaving me alone in surgery. Why was I still so worried about protecting their comfort? I opened my notes app and reread what I had written earlier. Not insults. Not exaggerations. Just facts. The surgery. The voices outside the curtain. Waking up alone while my family celebrated somewhere else. I went back to the photo and started typing a caption. I erased it. Tried again. Erased that too. Finally, I stopped trying to make it sound gentle. I wrote, had emergency surgery last night. Went in alone. Woke up alone. My family chose a birthday party instead. I paused, then added one more line. Apparently, I'm strong enough to handle it by myself. My heart was pounding now, not from fear, but from the weight of the truth sitting there on my screen. I wasn't naming names. I wasn't tagging anyone. I wasn't attacking. I was telling the truth. For a moment, I considered not posting it. Saving it. Letting it sit there as proof only I would ever see. But I knew what would happen if I did that. Nothing would change. So I took a breath, felt the ache in my body, and pressed post. The screen refreshed. And in that moment, before the reactions even started, I felt something shift. For the first time, I wasn't protecting them. I was protecting myself. At first, nothing happened. The post sat there quietly on my screen, just another image in an endless scroll. For a few seconds, I wondered if I had overestimated how much it would matter. Maybe people would skim past it. Maybe it would fade into the background like everything else. Then the notifications started. One like. Then another. Then comments. What? Are you okay? This is heartbreaking. Messages poured in from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old classmates. Fellow dancers. Even acquaintances I barely remembered adding their voices, their disbelief, their anger on my behalf. What surprised me most wasn't the attention. It was how quickly people understood. No one asked what I had done to deserve it. No one tried to explain my family's behavior away. The reaction was immediate and unanimous. That's not okay. And then my phone started buzzing differently. Texts from my family. What did you post? Why would you do this publicly? Take that down. You're making us look bad. I read them slowly, my hands steady now. The shift was impossible to ignore. They hadn't rushed to the hospital when I was in pain. They hadn't panicked when I went into surgery. They panicked when the image cracked. A call came in from my mom. I let it ring. Another from my cousin. Then an aunt. Then a number I didn't recognize. The nurse walked in and raised an eyebrow at the constant buzzing. Busy, she asked lightly. Something like that, I said. She checked my vitals and then lowered her voice. If you want, I can tell the front desk to limit visitors. You don't have to deal with stress right now. I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said. Saying that felt strangely powerful. Not dramatic. Not cruel. Just clear. By the afternoon, my post had spread further than I ever imagined. People shared it. Commented on it. Added their own stories about being the strong one who never got support. My story wasn't just mine anymore. And my family could feel that. A final message came through from my mom. We're coming to the hospital. Not a question. A statement. I stared at it for a long moment, then set my phone face down. If they were going to see me now, it wouldn't be on their terms. They weren't walking into a quiet hospital visit. They were walking into the truth. They didn't come immediately. Hours passed after that message. Long enough for the adrenaline to wear off and leave behind something sharper and clearer. I watched people pass my room through the gap in the curtain, families bringing flowers, friends pulling up chairs, hands being held. My room stayed empty. My phone buzzed again. You didn't have to do this publicly. We could have handled this as a family. People are judging us. That last one told me everything. They weren't upset because I was hurt. They were upset because other people could see it. When the nurse finally came in and told me my mom was asking to come up, she looked at me carefully. Do you want to see her? I took a breath. Yes, but only her and my cousin. A few minutes later, the curtain shifted. My mom walked in first. Her eyes were puffy, her expression tight, like she was bracing for something. My cousin followed behind her, avoiding my gaze. "How are you feeling?" my mom asked. "I had surgery," I said calmly. "Alone." Her mouth tightened. "We didn't think it was that serious. They said it was routine." "You heard the word surgery," I replied. "And you still left." She sighed, already defensive. "You're making it sound worse than it was." I looked at her and said the thing I'd been holding since the operating room. "They asked me who was waiting for me. I told them my family was here. I lied for you." Silence filled the room. "You embarrassed us," she whispered finally. "People are calling." "I didn't embarrass you," I said. "I told the truth." My cousin shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't realize it would hurt you like this." "If it had been you," I asked quietly, "do you think they would have left?" He didn't answer. I didn't need him to. For the first time, I didn't soften my words. I didn't apologize for my tone. I let the discomfort exist. Because it finally wasn't mine alone to carry. After they left, something settled inside me. Not peace. Clarity. That afternoon, I did small things that felt big. I muted family group chats. I silenced notifications that spiked my anxiety. I changed my emergency contact to my best friend, the one who had checked on me without being asked. Access stopped being automatic. It became intentional. A nurse noticed how much calmer I looked and smiled. That usually happens when people stop carrying things they were never meant to carry alone. That night, my best friend came by. She didn't interrogate me. She didn't tell me what I should do. She just sat with me. "I'm proud of you," she said. For the first time, I believed it. The day I was discharged, my mom texted. "I'm downstairs. I can drive you home." I stared at the message, then replied with one sentence. "I already have a ride." My friend helped me walk slowly down the hallway. Near the exit, I saw my mom waiting. She stepped forward when she saw me. I didn't stop. I didn't rush either. I just kept walking. Outside, the air felt sharper. Realer. As the car pulled away, I didn't look back. Recovery forced me to slow down. And in that stillness, my upcoming performance changed meaning. I called my choreographer and told her I needed to rewrite my solo. When I explained why, she went quiet, then said, "If you're ready to tell that story, we'll make space." We stripped the piece down. No flash. No polish. Just tension, collapse, and restraint. My limitations became part of the choreography. The dance stopped being about being impressive. It became about being honest. We named the piece Alone, finally. I didn't tell my family what it was about. I needed the truth to exist without being negotiated first. My mom texted that she'd be there. My cousin said the same. I didn't respond. Silence wasn't punishment. It was space. And I needed it. The theater was full. From the wings, I saw my family in the second row. Sitting straight. Waiting. When my solo began, the room went quiet. I lay curled on the floor under a single light. Movements were small. Shaking. Unsteady. Midway through, my recorded voice filled the theater. I went into emergency surgery alone. I woke up alone. My family chose a party instead. I saw my mom's hand fly to her mouth. The dance grew sharper. Angrier. Then softer. I turned my back to the audience and walked slowly into the darkness. When the lights went out, there was silence. Then applause. Loud. Sustained. I stood in the shadows, breathing hard. For once, the truth had been seen. In the lobby, my mom approached me carefully. "I didn't realize how deep it went," she said. "Seeing it, hearing it." "Feeling ashamed isn't the same as changing," I replied. She nodded. "Tell me what you need." "I need space," I said. "I need you to stop calling me strong when it's convenient. And I need therapy. All of you." They agreed. I didn't forgive them on the spot. I didn't promise anything. That night, I updated my post. I wrote that my family was finally listening. That we were starting therapy. That I wasn't taking the post down. Because it was my story too. I don't know yet how this ends. I don't know if forgiveness will come easily. But I do know this. I'm done being the strong one who suffers in silence so others can stay comfortable. If your family ever makes you feel like you don't deserve support, remember this. You're allowed to tell the truth. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to choose yourself. And if the people who say they love you only show up when everyone is watching, is that love? What would you have done if you were me?